Welcome to the Music for the Soul podcast, where we talk honestly about difficult things. This is a place where music, hope, and healing come together. I'm Becky Nordquist.
And I'm Steve Seiler. Thanks so much for joining us. We are thrilled today to be able to introduce you to a guitar virtuoso. That's how I would refer to him, Mr. Mark Baldwin. Hey, Mark.
Hey.
Hey, so glad that you're with us today.
I'm happy to be here.
You're reminding me of a song that my kids used to listen to from the Parachute Express when I was a kid. Happy to be here, happy to be, we love you. Okay, there's enough of that. But every time somebody says, I'm happy to be here, I think of that song. So
okay. I don't think I experienced that song. So, good for you.
I'm happy to share it with you. Look at all this happiness we have.
So much happiness. The sun must be shining somewhere.
Somewhere. Not here.
I'm just curious, how did you guys meet?
How did we meet?
Well, let's see. I think Steve was doing a Music for the Soul project, recording at Ken Hooper's when he used to live in Franklin, I believe. And I just remember him talking about Music for the Soul and also about a prayer group that he was in. And I so wanted to be in a prayer group especially of musicians, creatives, people who would understand what we go through, our travails and our good times as well. Just people who'd understand that. So when he talked about that, I joined the prayer group. And then since then, I've been involved occasionally with Music for the Soul as a player, as a guitarist.
Yeah. Do you know how many times you have been occasionally a part of a record of ours?
Wow. I guess I don't.
Because I wouldn't use the word occasionally to describe a guitarist who has been on 25 of our songs.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
Woo.
Well, that is a privilege. Thank you.
For us as well.
Yeah, so I was going to say that's our privilege. So tell us, when and how did you come to first take up the guitar?
Well, let's see. The thing that got me going, I think, I grew up in Japan, just a little background. My dad was a missionary in Japan, and I had some older sisters who got a Beatles 45. Go look it up, people who are younger than me. Anyway, they had a 45 playing, and it was the room next to mine. It was Please Please Me by the Beatles. And I just remember just going, what is that? That is so cool. And there was a guitar part in that specifically that I really liked. And I thought, man, I'd love to know how to do that. And so I ended up getting a guitar, a cheap one at that time. And I started getting lessons by a Japanese teacher who was on nylon string guitar. And it just kind of went from there. Got into a couple of groups in high school, played for the school dances, and just kept at it.
So about how old were you when you started, would you say?
Let's see. That would have been 10 or 11, something like that. Yeah.
The story about Please Please Me is that George Martin was working with the Beatles and trying to find something that he felt like he could record that would be a hit. And they brought Please Please Me in, and they played it through, and he said, it's too slow. Let's speed it up. Let's try speeding it up. So they sped it up, and when they finished rehearsing, having sped it up, he said, boys, that's going to be your first number one song.
Love that. Okay, it reminds me of, there's a movie called That Thing You Do.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen it? Tom Hanks?
Yes.
Was the manager, blah, blah,
yes.
blah. But the drummer was listening to this song, and he said, what if you just started playing it faster? It's amazing how one person changing something like the tempo can actually make a song go from mediocre to a hit. So
absolutely,
that just fascinates me, that kind of thing.
We've all had the experience, those of us who get to work in the studio, of playing a song and just feeling like something's not right. And let's try it, 4 beats per minute faster, 4 beats per minute slower. And it does make a difference.
It makes a huge difference. Even the attitude in terms of the style that you're doing, if you just shift it a little bit and just go, it just feels like it needs to be a little more soulful, a little funkier. And then you add a little something. It just shifts it and makes it what it should have been. But that requires people being in the room together.
Yes.
And that is one of the things, unfortunately, that's become less and less in the industry these days, because so many times people will send something over the internet and say, yeah, put some guitars on it. And you're going, okay, but it's already been baked. Part of the ingredients to make it a better cake or a better stew, better soup, whatever.
Yes.
So that has changed. But when you do have the opportunity, it makes you realize how much collaboration is important.
Well, I always love to say that creativity breeds creativity. And when you can feed off of each other, it's really an incredible thing. And when you can be open to ideas, isn't it true? And
Totally.
I personally have benefited from your creativity and love how you've contributed to the things on my project and with Music for the Soul. So I'm grateful for your gifts.
Thank you. Well, it also, when you are relating to a song, that song, I think that I was part of, called You're With Me, I just related to the honesty of that. I can't hear you, I can't feel you. But then coming to the chorus of just saying, but you're with me. There's a lot of, to me, the Psalms are like that. There's honesty there, but then there's a declaration of faith, sometimes through gritted teeth, sometimes through tears. Yes. But it's still, you do know that he's there. And so, I mean, those kind of songs, to me, the more realistic, more vulnerable songs are the ones that really that I can relate to. So I was very privileged to be part of that song.
Well, I'm so glad. And that's exactly where those lyrics came. It's that, yet I will. And
yes.
I even put in parentheses in my Bible, I put in the parentheses too. I will too. I cause my will to praise him. I'm willfully praising because I don't feel it, and your guitar skills are just so tender and intimate. And it was just everything a songwriter dreams of when someone brings a good arrangement to, it's kind of your baby that you birthed,
Yeah,
So
I totally get that. Yes.
Yeah. So you've been a session musician in Nashville for many years. Who are some of the notable artists that you've played for? Do you mind sharing with us?
Well, absolutely. Well, I'll tell you, I've had a bucket list, okay,
Nice.
of people that I've wanted to play for a long time. And God has been gracious in granting me a couple of those. One of them was Stevie Wonder.
Woohoo!
I played, it was actually an event in LA at a NAMM show, but I will never forget hearing that voice coming up through the speakers and going, you know what? I'm going to remember this the rest of my life because he's on that list.
Yes.
Those kinds of people, like Stevie Wonder, one time Whitney Houston, those are kind of people that they transform you by their voices. I mean, they're what they have deep inside of them. And in terms of recording projects, a lot of them have been with contemporary Christian artists. And some of those, like Stephen Curtis Chapman or Michael W., those are kind of people that I respect their songwriting, and I respect their hearts. And so those have been really good recording situations. But so the live and the recording are two different things, but you're still able to be in the presence of some of those people. And it's a privilege. It really is to be part of that.
Well, speaking about being in the presence of somebody, Mark, you've told me about one time in particular where you and your dad attended a concert performance that really inspired you. Can you share that with our audience?
Oh, absolutely. I was in high school and I'd been starting to take guitar lessons. And my dad said, well, there's this guy named Christopher Parkening who's doing a concert. He's a classical guitarist. And this was in Louisville, Kentucky. And he said, I think he's playing. And also, there was this other guy named Andre Segovia. Hello.
Oh, that guy.
That guy. Yeah, just mildly talented classical guitarist, only like the best on the planet at the time. So we went together. And I just remember being transfixed and transported at the same time with one man and a guitar, what he could do with his fingers and the way that he coaxed emotions through his playing. I just went, oh my goodness, I just love what that means. And I would love to be able to do that at some point in time, at least attempt to do that with my own instrument. And so it just, it was a transporting moment. It really was in a lot of ways.
I remember you saying that to see a man hold an audience in the palm of his hand, just a man and a guitar.
Literally in the palms of his hand.
Right.
Both of them. Yes. It was instructive to me because I think that there was also the communal sense of looking around and seeing people's faces. Just seeing all of a sudden you see this smile of just like, you were just taken somewhere. And that's part of instrumental music because it doesn't have the words to it, but the instrumental music can take you somewhere individually.
Right.
Because the words are not planting you in a particular place. I mean, you can actually go somewhere with it. The most powerful instrumental music to me also is some of the music that I worship to the most because of its emotional impact.
I've always thought it's interesting. You know, you don't have to be German to appreciate what's going on in a Beethoven symphony. Right?
And yes, that is very true.
I have to say that I've been enjoying some instrumental music in my quiet time. This week, there's like this whole little instrumental ditty called Restoration.
Oh.
And I'm like, ooh, so I queued that up and it is just so soothing. I'm getting ahead of myself. This is your project, Mark, that I'm talking about. So for our listeners, but it's just beautiful. And that transporting definitely happens for me. It just brings a calm and a rest and we all need that. But this week in particular, I've needed it. And so you've really blessed the project and I'm hoping that many will tune into it and see that blessing as well. But yeah, it definitely transports me into a place of peace and enjoyed it this week.
Well, that is my prayer when I start writing for projects like that. That just, you know, God inhabits the praises of his people and then praise through my fingers that it would bring people to a place of calm. I started doing restoration during the beginning of the pandemic. And the reason why that title, restoration, is restoring peace, tranquility, and calm, because the nation was just going bonkers at that point in time with what was going on. And I just wanted to do something that I felt that could restore, as far as the title goes, restoring a place of centeredness and peace.
I think you might have considered calling the project Bonkers because that's, you know, that's got a real ring to it.
Well, that's another project. Be more electric guitar, I think. On that
this is the healing from going bonkers.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah, if you're going to do Bonkers, you want to set the whole thing in 7/8 time or something like that.
Okay.
So, Mark, I know you love the Lord. Was there any particular event that turned your heart toward wanting to be involved in Christian music in particular?
Well, when I became a Christian, I mean, I'm a missionary kid, right? And so everybody thinks, oh, well, you're a pastor's kid, so you know the Lord. Well, not so much until it was after my freshman year in college. I actually went to, I don't want to get too specific about this, but it was through somebody that I met that invited me to a church that was an Assemblies of God church. I'll never forget it because, I mean, my dad is a Presbyterian minister. And so these people were a little out there, right? You know, but I kind of thought, well, they're really, really into this, you know? And so I just sat there for a while and I'll never forget, it was a smaller church, but the pastor coming up to me and saying, so, you know, just tell me about yourself and what's going on. And I said, well, I'm a missionary kid. You know, I know about the Bible and all that stuff. And he said later that he felt that God had just kind of directed him to me and said, this guy needs to know the Lord because he doesn't. So I think maybe a week or two later, going to that same church, I really did go, you know what? I need to accept him into my life and just give my life over to him. And what happened was the next morning I woke up and these hymns that I had witnessed and been part of as, going to church all these years, all of a sudden came alive.
Wow.
Mm.
And I'll never forget that because it was just like, great is thy faithfulness. There's no shadow of turning and all of a sudden I was going, you know what? This is now alive in me. And those were seeds that were planted years ago, but those seeds are now, they are coming alive and flowering in me. And now I know what they were talking about this Lord that they're, worshiping.
Mm.
So that's where it came, I think that's when music, in terms of praising God and just your heart leaning into him, that's when that started. It was after that experience of saying, yeah, I need to accept the Lord. So I did.
Boy, that's just a beautiful, beautiful testimony. And isn't it true that longest journey sometimes is the 18 inches from your head to your heart? Have you ever heard that?
Uh-huh.
Sometimes that's the longest journey, but it's the best one.
It is
glory
the
to God.
best one.
That's
Indeed.
awesome.
Well, I can certainly testify to the heart that you bring to your playing. And Becky alluded to that a little earlier. You play so expressively. It's almost like I can hear your soul speaking through the choices you make when you play the guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And
Thank you. That means a lot.
Oh, well, it's easy to say, Mark. You have brought me to a place of worship, to a place of tears, many, many times. Let's play a little bit of one of the songs you played for us right now so people can hear that. It's called Listen with Love.
At a glance you'd say, she's got it all together. To look at her, you'd think you know the truth. Inside she hides a secret she's ashamed of, afraid she'd be unwelcome if you knew. God already knows her story, and he loves her. Which one of us could throw a stone and judge her? We need to listen with love. Listen with love. May the church be a safe place to tell the truth. A new dawn will rise where there was darkness before, when we listen with love like the Lord.
So, Mark, describe, if you can, a little bit the process for entering into a song. I mean, you sit down, there's a piece of sheet music maybe in front of you, or maybe if you're working with me, I say, hey, Mark, listen to this and write a chart.
Yeah, right.
But how do you get from the notes on the page, from the work tape, if there is one or whatever, from the skeleton to enter into the place where you know what you're called to bring to it?
Well, I will say this. Ever since I came into this town, if I'm going to a session, my prayer, and I always remember to pray it because I really believe it. Lord, anoint my mind and my hands to play for your glory. That's what I say before every session. So when I get there and I'm hearing a song, I do think that part of what you do as a session musician is that you start hearing parts. You start kind of going, what if, I can kind of hear this melody over here. That's what starts the process of going, but what if this, intro was slightly different? What if it's this, because you do hear it. And I think that's part of why session musicians and studio musicians are maybe a little different. I'm sure everybody hears things, but that's part of my job, is to be part arranger and part just, musician as well. I think that's a combination.
What's interesting about that is I can't think of how many times I've been in the studio and one of the musicians will come up with an arranging idea. And I think, I'll even often say out loud, yeah, I wrote that. I know the chart just says a G chord there, but I'll take credit for that. I got no problem doing that. Thank you very much. Here's your check. Go away.
Well, I appreciate that confession, Steve.
Yeah, sure. My pleasure.
You wondered, huh? Oh.
So what is the difference, since you've been talking about a studio musician, I know you've also toured live. What would you say is the primary difference between live performing as opposed to studio performing?
Well, there's the instant feedback with live performing, and the band that I'm playing with is an R&B horn section band called the Smoking Section. And as far as listeners go, realize that it's a play on words. Smoking, meaning the musicians are on fire.
Smoking hot.
That's the play on words. We don't smoke. So anyway.
I'm not even going to go where all the visuals just went in my mind.
Exactly.
Oh, they were entertaining.
Well, so when we play, there's an instant feedback with the audience, and the audience is there, to have a good time. And those kind of things, they kind of feed back. There's a kind of a loop going live. Now, in the studio, it's just you and, a producer or an engineer, an artist. And so you're just kind of just going for something and then waiting for feedback. It's just a completely different experience to me. And hopefully, they'll say good things as you're working on something in the studio. But the live situation is always a much more instant feedback loop, if you will. And so at least you hope it is. If people are sitting on their hands and just kind of, okay, whatever.
Well, that's a feedback of its own kind.
That is a feedback. It's the feedback of nothing. And sometimes that can happen. So, yeah, that's the difference.
Cricket feedback is never a fun thing.
In terms of venues, I know my own experience, I would much rather play to an audience of, 20, 30, 40, where I can actually feel like I can feel what's happening in the room.
Right.
Whereas when you're playing for, a vast arena and there's just this black sea.
Right. Actually, the first artist that I toured with when I came to Nashville was Amy Grant. And the first concert I did, I will never forget it because, like you say, there's just a sea of people. And I thought, well, they seem to be into it, but, wait till they hear this guitar solo. I mean, that's going to transport them, right? And so after the concert, this lady came up to the stage and I thought, oh, yeah, well, she's going to say, that solo rocked my world. Oh, yeah, no question about it. So she comes up and she goes, here's this, can you give this note to Amy? That's why she wanted me at the front of the stage. I just love her. My daughter loves her and my mother loves her as well. And I just wanted her to know. And I thought, this was a good example of understanding what your particular role was in this situation. You are serving the artist, serving the song, and it kind of changed me to the point where I understood, priorities, as it were, after that point in time. So,
well, experiencing being part of the band,
yes,
as being the role of creating an overall experience, and not being as concerned with who gets the credit as that the audience be served and moved.
Exactly. When you're a kind of a I had graduated from Berklee College of Music, and there was a lot of hotshot guitar players that were there, and you just always think that the thing that you're going to do is going to change the world, as it were. And it's just a lesson of humility to understand that you bring something to the whole process, but and the end result is that people are there to see this artist and you are serving them.
So, Mark, I have a question for you, which I'm sure some of our listeners that are up and coming guitar players or musicians, how did you get your start in Nashville?
Oh my goodness. What would that? Let's see. Well, I actually was visited Nashville for the first time. I was in this Christian group called Glad. I was a guitar player for about a year and a half. With Glad, we visited Nashville because they were talking about maybe a management situation with Blanton and Harrell at the time. And I just I just liked the fact that this was a place full of Christian musicians who were trying to, who were being involved in the Christian music industry, whatever. When I left Glad and got married, and we decided we're going to move to Nashville. We felt like God was leading us there. And so I'm trying to remember my first session. I do remember that it started badly. As a matter of fact, I got in a car wreck on the way to my first session. And so I got there late, and I'll never forget. It was like one of those sessions where there were 50 musicians in there. It was an orchestra session. And so I'm an hour and a half late to the session and just, sweat pouring down me. And then I just thought, this didn't go well. I wonder if God is saying you shouldn't do this. Well, fortunately, the next session I did went a whole lot better. And so I realized that there are times when there might be a little curve in the road, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you should abandon what you're supposed to do, what you feel you're led to do. And so for those that are thinking about being a session musician, I understand that sometimes it's a process. Mm-hmm. And you need to kind of go through a couple of things to figure out what it is that you need to do.
Well, speaking of curves in the road, I want to throw you a curve. I rarely see you without a Boston Red Sox hat on. And I assume that affinity developed during your time at the Berklee School of Music.
It certainly did.
So I just have to ask you, and you can't say Ted Williams. Who is your all-time favorite Red Sox?
All-time favorite. Oh boy. Well, okay, and this one's going to hurt a little bit because he no longer plays for the Red Sox, but he plays for a team that I think maybe you like a lot, Steve. When I went to a Red Sox game in 2018, there was a guy named Mookie Betts who was playing with them. And I'll never forget this because it was just like one of those moments where you go, I'm so happy that I was here to experience this moment. He fouled off the pit. There was like 8 pitches that he kept fouling off, and he had 2 strikes, foul. And I went, this is either going to be incredible or it's going to end badly. Bases were loaded. 9th pitch, he hits out of the park. And of course, that means 4 runs come in. And the Red Sox won the game. And I thought to myself, now this guy is a transformational guy. A year later, he left the Red Sox and joined this team out on the West Coast. I'm trying to remember their name. The Los Angeles Dodgers. So that was an incredible moment. But in terms of someone from the early days that I saw, I love Carlton Fisk. He was a catcher. And he's that guy who had the famous moment in the World Series of 75, which was a great game, but it didn't end well in terms of the Red Sox for the series. But he hits this ball, and he just sitting there just waving the ball. He's willing the ball because it was like leaning foul. Yes. It became a home run. And that was just one of those moments where you go, that's what baseball is all about, those kind of moments.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, Carlton Fisk.
Well, baseball's great and all, but I have one more question for you. And I actually do like baseball, just for the record. But I wonder if you could give a word of encouragement to any of our aspiring artists out there that are looking to do what you do. What would you recommend for the young kid that's just starting out playing his guitar in his bedroom and cranking the amp loud and giving his parents headaches. And
Right.
what word of encouragement would you have for him or her?
Well, I would say, music is such a wonderful thing. And it's just being able to play and be with friends or just even in your room. There's so much joy that can be had with that. So, stick with it. And I will say to young guitarists, because I had to go through this, you have to play long enough to get calluses on your fingers. Because, I've seen so many start to play the guitar and just go, well, it hurts. And so I'm just going to put it down. No. You have to kind of keep going, because once you get those calluses, that's when it's not going to hurt anymore. And then you can start to really to really play. So stick with it and just, continue to pray that God will lead you where you need to be.
Amen.
So good. So good. Thanks so much, Mark. And thanks for sharing your time with us today and places of your life with us today and your experience. We really appreciate you and certainly appreciate you so much here at Music for the Soul.
We sure do. And I know our listeners would appreciate knowing how to find you. Mark's website is markbaldwinguitar.com. That's markbaldwinguitar.com. Check it out.
If you enjoyed the discussion today, please share it with a friend and give us a positive review on iTunes.
And please visit our website, musicforthesoul.org, where you can stream or download every song in our catalog, including Listen with Love and You're With Me that we talked about today. Read our lyrics, our healing music guide, our blog posts, and much more. Thank you for listening. God bless.
At a glance, you'd say she's got it all together. To look at her, you'd think you know the truth. Inside, she hides a secret she's ashamed of, afraid she'd be unwelcome if you knew. God already knows her story, and He loves her. Which one of us could throw a stone and judge her? We need to listen with love. Listen with love. May the church be a safe place to tell the truth. A new dawn will rise where there was darkness before. When we listen with love like the Lord. In the churches and cathedrals where we worship, we need hearts that long to hear and understand. When burdens can be laid down without shaming, then healing can begin across our land. If we listen with love, listen with love, may the church be a safe place to tell the truth. A new dawn will rise where there was darkness before. When we listen with love like the Lord. No more need for silence or living with a lie. To May the church be a safe place to tell the truth. A new dawn will